It is my pleasure to welcome you to our panel discussion on building trust and protection in migration data for and with youth, fostering a more inclusive future. My name is Khadija Amahal. I'm from Morocco, and I'm proudly the daughter of an indigenous Amazigh family. And I have the pleasure of co-moderating today's panel discussion together with my colleague Dennis.
Dear guests, colleagues, my name is Denis Yaramenko from Ukraine. I'm a part of the Migration, Youth and Children Platform Youth Committee on Migration and Displacement Data. I will be co-moderating today's youth session, but before we start our panel discussion, it's my honor to welcome Milena Franke, the co-director of the Migration, Youth and Children Platform, and a human rights lawyer working with the International Criminal Court, to deliver her introductory speech. Milena, the stage is yours.
Dear colleagues and dear partners, good morning to everyone joining us in Rabat and online. We're very pleased to be here today and welcome you to a special focus session facilitated by the Migration, Youth and Children Platform. As Khadija kindly introduced me already, my name is Milena and I'm the co-director of MyCP as well as the program coordinator of the Youth Committee on Migration and Displacement Data, with some of our fantastic members of the committee being with us in person, but also online. First and foremost, we would like to thank the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move for not only being a key partner in promoting the engagement of children and youth in data processes, but also hosting this week's second annual conference and ensuring our personal presence in Morocco. Allow me to express our utmost gratitude to Damen and Jablison, without whom inclusivity in this important space would cease to become reality. For those that may not be familiar with the work of MyCP, we are a youth-led network for and by young people to impact the highest levels of international migration policy making. As a self-organized space for children and youth to contribute to engage in intergovernmental processes, we represent members of young migrants under the age of 30 and youth-led organizations from across the world. In 2021, we have been recognized as the official youth stakeholder mechanism of the Global Forum on Migration and Development. MyCP is committed to a mission separated into 5 pillars that you can see on the screen: policy and advocacy, capacity building, children and youth knowledge and action, and meaningful youth participation. In the context of migration, MyCP has reached over 500 organizations representing almost 1 million children and youth from all countries and continents. We hosted over 400 GCM-focused consultations with 100,000 young migrants. Earlier this year in January, MyCP hosted the 4th Migration Youth Forum, which serves as the official preparatory space for youth to consolidate, but also to exchange priorities, recommendations, youth-led solutions, and best practices. Our main bid remains to deliver on a strong, inspirational, and substantive youth presence at the annual GFND Summit. Between October 2022 and June 2024, MyCP, in partnership with UNICEF, implemented a paid Youth on the Move Fellowship pilot program. 23 migrant and displaced youth who face barriers to learning, but also earning opportunities because of their migration or displacement experiences, work with 10 UNICEF country offices, 3 regional offices, and 4 headquarters teams. The fellowship accomplished another milestone for young migrants and refugees this year, having been scaled up to an official UNV program. Now we have also reached my favorite part of the welcome remarks, introducing our most recent initiative, launched in September earlier this year in partnership with IDAC, which is the Youth Committee on Migration and Displacement Data, with members including young migrants, but also refugees representing different regions. The committee will help ensure the perspectives, needs, but also the solutions of young migrants and refugees are acknowledged and recognized. Abdurrahman, Dennis, Keisha, Hari, and Salsabila, we are so incredibly proud of all of your skills, expertise, and talents that you bring to us. You're the shining stars of this program that brighten our efforts in ensuring that no young person on the move is left behind. In the coming months, the committee will launch its very first youth consultation and training series on migration and displacement data, providing capacity building for young migrants and refugees to generate a solid foundation of knowledge on the topic for more generations to come. In an additional process, a survey is to be conducted with young communities directly affected by migration and displacement to better understand the ethical complexities, but also the challenges they have been facing on the move, but also to build trust and protection in migration data for and with youth, which is the main theme of the session. Meaningful participation of children and youth in data-related processes is of utmost importance for understanding their unique experiences and promoting their rights and well-being. Similarly, engaging young people enhances the accuracy, relevance, and comprehensiveness of collected data, leading to more informed and effective policy development. Actively engaging those who are marginalized and/or silenced in data-related processes can enhance their agency and their communication and leadership skills. As a Palestinian, having been displaced 3 times during my early childhood and forced to become a child refugee at the age of 6, it was not the time spent in the refugee camp that gave me hope. It was the recognition of my rights and the experiences that I made on the move. But most importantly, the ability to actively shape policies that would construct, but could also deconstruct the lives of my community. We can see that investing in data collection and research by including children and youth on the move is essential for creating a more equitable world where all of them have access to the resources they need to live and thrive. Before moving on to our wonderful panelists who are eager to share their stories and great panel of knowledge, I would like to draw your attention to the Global Pledge for Better Data on Migrant and Displaced Children, launched by MyCP and IDAC in January 2023. It is not just a call for action, it is a promise for the future. We call on UN member states, but also other stakeholders, to develop a comprehensive strategy for improving disaggregated migration data at local, national, regional, and global levels, exploring but also utilizing alternative data sources, for example, big data, operational data, to better understand but also to respond to the needs of migrant and displaced children, especially in emergency contexts, but also to make systematic financial and technical investments, DOTS efforts to transform data and statistical systems to address child-specific needs. I feel like I might be running a bit out of time, so I kindly invite you to scan the QR code shown on the screen to learn more about the pledge, but also to amplify it in all of the processes that you will be involved in. If you wish to discuss it further, if you have any questions, we are more than happy to dedicate some time during the lunch break to understand more, and you can fill in the form with your name, but also your email address, your organization affiliation, your country, but also which stakeholder you represent, whether it's a member state, academia, youth, or any other. Now I will hand over the floor back to Khadija to officially kick off our panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Milena, for your eloquent speech, introduction, and also introducing the impactful work of MyCP. I've been part of this organization for 2 years, and it's been a very meaningful experience. Now we are honored to have a distinguished panel of experts from diverse fields, from diverse backgrounds, who will share their insights on building trust and ensuring protection in migration data for and with youth, all while fostering a more inclusive future. We warmly welcome Mr. Christian Baba joining us online. He is a filmmaker and refugee advocate. His work involves advocacy for the rights to equal opportunities and access to quality education. Asma, we're also joined by Asma Nairi from the International Detention Coalition. She is a migrant lawyer, academic, and human rights advocate. We're also very happy to have here with us Dr. Sri Hari. He's a medical doctor pursuing a double master's in public health, specializing in environment and occupational health. We also have here with us, joining us online, Elijah Aqua, pursuing a Bachelor of Arts, Gender and Development Studies with a focus on gender and psychology. He's also the co-founder of Lift Me Up, an initiative dedicated to supporting refugee youth through mentorship programs and technical training. And he's also a former UNICEF MyCP on the Move Fellow. Last but not least, we are joined here in this room with Salsabila Rashid, a member of the MyCP IDAC Youth Committee on Migration and Displacement Data. She's a junior technical advisor at GIZ and women and youth rights activists. I couldn't tell the entire biography of all the speakers because they have extensive experiences, and for the sake of time, you will have an opportunity to explore their work more during their interventions. I want to start with the story. When I was a kid, my primary school teacher asked me about my future dream job, and I instantly and immediately said that I wanted to become an ophthalmologist to heal my father who lost his eyesight when I was a baby. I was confident about my dream because I had the passion, I was a hardworking student, and I knew that I had all the conditions to achieve my dream. But unfortunately, not all children around the world have the same privilege. But yesterday and today we talked a lot about hope. And through this panel, I hope that we gain that hope in the possibility of creating better conditions for children. You will notice that I love stories, but I'm not the only storyteller in the room. And it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Christian Baba. Christian, can you hear us? Perfect, good to see you. With your extensive experience as a filmmaker in Kakuma, could you please explain how storytelling has helped the community better understand data processes in a local context? Furthermore, what role do you believe the media plays in enhancing access for children and youth on the move? Thank you, Christian. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Khadija, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I would have loved to be with you in the room and to tell you a story of my own, as Khadija just did. But because I am joining online and I'm not very sure about my internet connection, I'll just go straight to answering the question. So I have been living in Kakuma refugee camp for the past 6 years. I'm originally from DRC, from Congo. And I have been a filmmaker in the refugee camp and also outside. And for how really filmmaking or maybe storytelling in general helps the community understand at least their right to data privacy is actually, I would say in my experience, filmmaking and storytelling is the only thing that actually gives the community a sense of how do they protect their data and how do they protect their privacy. Because when we do, for instance, if we are engaging with the community, we ensure that they know what we are doing and we have a consent form signed for them to actually agree that they are able to, they volunteer to participate in the exercise. And usually these are stories collected for the case of educating other members of the community, and especially if children are involved, we actually ask and inquire the presence of the parents so that we know that, because as you might know, children do not have the right to kind of give consent. As filmmakers, we pay so much attention to ensuring there is a guardian who allows the collection of the data if children are involved. And that's how actually we kind of communicate the importance of data privacy to the community, because now this gives the community a sense of, oh, so I can decide if I am joining or participating in this activity or not. So it is my data, it's the photograph, it is the sound, it is the information that we are asking them, age, where they are coming from, why they left their countries. So they have the choice to to agree or disagree in joining this exercise beforehand, before we actually start collecting any kind of information or data that we are collecting. So I think that has helped the community a little bit to better understand whether they have right to their privacy, to their data privacy, because then when you move around with your cell phone and you want to take a picture of someone, they ask you kindly and respectfully, do you have the right to take my picture? You didn't ask me for consent. And I think that is a key important aspect of what storytelling has brought to the communities, especially in the refugee camps, because you find out that these people are coming from very remote areas affected by conflict mainly, and they do not know what it is to be to give consent or not to give consent. Yeah, I think, I don't know if that answers your question. I forgot the last bit, the second bit of your question. Can you repeat that, please, Khadija?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, by the way, for highlighting the important role of storytelling to talk about ethics and also highlight the importance of taking the participants' consent before documenting their stories. The second part of the question is, what role do you believe the media plays in enhancing access to data for children and youth on the move?
Oh yeah, exactly. So that's actually the second bit of my intervention. Usually we have in the refugee, and I will talk in the context of the refugee camp where I come from. We have this exercise where we are like either running campaigns about fraud and misinformation, and we need to document either a story of someone in the refugee camp. And maybe this someone is someone who has been contacted by fraudulence or people who are claiming to be affiliated with a certain organization to collect information or data. So the same process applies. We approach the people, the community members, to ask them if they consent in participating in the exercise. And the product of this exercise, let's say a film, a short documentary, is displayed in public spaces like markets, like food distribution centers, so that other people who are coming to the food distribution centers can learn how to prevent or how to mitigate, how to behave when this kind of people or this kind of exercise are kind of if these people approach them to collect their data without being affiliated with any organization. For instance, I'll give an example. Recently, we have received an influx of people claiming to come from the UNHCR, and they are collecting data and collecting a little bit of money. Obviously, there is money involved in those kind of cases, and they are collecting data so that they can come back to you and ask you that we want to help you in this and this and that way. And usually, people who are in refugee camps are usually concerned about the leakage, their data being leaked, whether from where they come from, because of the reasons why they leave their countries. And it is the role of the media to kind of highlight those kind of activities and highlight and show the public and show the community what is the right thing to do, when do you act on certain activities, and how do you recognize the exercises that are coming from the actual initiatives and actual organizations that are supposed to be collecting data in the refugee camp.
Thank you very much, Christian, for all the work that you're doing and for bringing our attention to an important topic, which is data privacy and data protection of migrants. It's been a pleasure having you here with us, and hopefully next time you will be joining us in person. And now I would like to invite Esma to describe the most notable challenges in providing the availability of data on migrants and refugee children and those in extended displacement situation, particularly in the context of human rights. And we talked yesterday about the important role of civil society organizations. What strategies or what strategy and concrete steps can we take to overcome those challenges as actors in civil society?
Thank you so much, Hadija. And I would like to start by thanking the Migration Youth and Children platform for organizing this panel and bringing this different perspective, and also for the Data Alliance for Children on the Move for inviting us today and to have civil society organizations and youth-led NGOs part of this discussion. So for those of you who are not familiar with International Detention Coalition, IDC is an international movement and a coalition of more than 500 organizations from all over the globe that we work specifically on ending immigration detention and advocating for alternatives to detention. Indeed, you may know that immigration, when you talk about immigration detention, is one of the topics in which we are not sure quite for all the context about the data and if we have the correct numbers or not. In some cases, of course, if it is official data, we are sure of how many people are unfortunately in immigration detention, but in different cases, specifically in North Africa and other parts of the world, immigration detention is implemented by non-official and non-governmental actors, which makes we don't have any data, unfortunately, and we're not able to provide any support or to assess what's happening to the children on the move and people in migrants in immigration detention. So yesterday, and I think we had, like this morning and yesterday, we had very extensive and great information from experts and colleagues about data gaps, the lack of data disaggregation and comparability, and we were able to have like an understanding from the expert point of view on what is missing and how you are trying to reinforce national data systems and to use this in order to improve the situation and structures of data on children on the move. However, we were in fact it was clear specifically in the afternoon when we had the working group tables that the main focus was on official data and data produced by governments, of course, which in fact, I think from the side of civil society organization, the human rights organization, is one of the main challenges. Because when we are only focusing on governmental and official data, it means that we are in fact avoiding or we are not considering unofficial data and data brought to the platform by organizations, civil society organizations, community-based initiatives, and youth and migrant-led NGOs. And we think that it is important to understand that migrants, when they are coming, the first thing that they try to avoid is any contact. Specifically, when we talk about migrant in irregular situation, the thing that they want to avoid is the shadow of governments and governmental agencies. And data collectors are, in fact, very, they are considered to be government. And they are considered even to be part of a security agency for migrant people and people on the move, which is making it very hard to reach to these people that their first goal is not to come into contact with any governmental agency. And the second point here is that migrants and people on the move and families on the move, sometimes they think that providing data to a specific country they are in is not really needed because they know that they are in transit and they will not be staying in this country. So they really don't understand why they are there, why they have to provide their data, and they don't see the use of this data in this specific context. So there is a lack of understanding and awareness of the use of this data and how it may benefit them. So we think that it is important to work with civil society organizations and community-led organizations in order to raise awareness of both people on the move, but also other civil society organizations on the need to bring the idea that even if you are in transit, and that this data collection and those statistics are in fact have the ultimate goal to support you in accessing services and to support migrants in generally. Well, unfortunately, there is now with the new the use of new technologies in border management, as civil society organizations, we think that there is a huge and a big door open to human rights violations, specifically that with the increasing reliance on border technologies for data collections, which is raising significant concerns. So data is no longer collected slowly by migration authorities. Indeed, there is private companies, international organizations, other social media companies. There are other states, and it is shared between states and different platforms. And hence, the first ethical norms and rules about data protection are indeed becoming more and more under threat, and which is opening the door to human rights violations. When we read different reports about promising practices on improving the data on children on the move, for instance, we see some reports that highlight data integration system used in some countries. Indeed, we think of it as being a door opening to human rights violations, because it is one of the concerning aspects is this potential misuse of data when we talk about data integration and different database integration, because it may allow the use of data for immigration enforcement. So from this perspective, we think that it is important first to work in order to raise these challenges, is to work on the raising awareness both in the migrant community and working with civil society organizations in order to include them in the process. Now, I would like to highlight here that what makes civil society organizations' role more important. We had this amazing session today, and we had this Moroccan example, and it explains how it is important to have civil society organizations, migrant-led NGOs involved in the process, and how they play an important role as mediators, but also they do play another role as data collectors in different remote places that even international organizations and governments in different contexts are not able to access it. It is important to build the trust, and this cannot be ensured or reached goal without having a migrant-led civil society help and support. We think also from our work in the MENA region specifically, that there is an important role for local governments that they can play in this specific topic, and it is essential to work on capacity building for the various stakeholders in order to foster collaboration through a whole of government and the whole of society approach, working on this in the context of data and statistics for children on the move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esma, for your insightful intervention and for highlighting the importance of raising awareness, collaboration, and including civil society organizations in data collection to improve these processes. Now, I invite Dr. Harry to give his intervention, and my question to you is, what frameworks are currently in place to protect migrant and displaced children on the move, particularly in the context of early childhood development, and what are your recommendations for more youth-led data collection practices?
Thank you, Khadija. Over the course of a few years, at least, I think I've had the privilege to work for and with children and youth in many capacities. So before we go into it, I want to make everybody understand childhood is a broad terminology. We all know it, but we still fall into this old habit of grouping them together. Now, children, each child is different, and they have different needs. Not only are they different based on situational settings, like on the move or disability or poverty, but also in the age settings. In terms of age group, you go from that continuum of early childhood in the first 1,000 days of life, and you go to childhood, adolescence to youth, and in that continuum of, in terms of policy and development also. Now, the experiences of children in these settings and these age groups are very different. And although we need to make sure that we don't distinctly put them in the same bracket. Now, the next slide. Now, I would say early childhood is the most vulnerable, as we make the case, and rightly so. But I'm going to rush through the whys because I think it's been covered very well in the previous session, the previous day, in fact. Now, the social and environmental, physical and environmental risks to early childhood, especially for children on the move. We need to protect them from injuries, poverty, health emergencies, and then going to environmental stresses like air quality, chemicals, water sanitation, hygiene, and then I think the crisis of current, which has placed so much importance in our lives right now, is climate change. The next slide. Okay, there was supposed to be an image with the child risk index for climate change, which was put by the UNICEF. It's not in the slide, unfortunately, but it says that 50% of the world's children live in extremely high-risk areas. And I've been in a lot of spaces where, they kind of quote this example that they live in 50%, 1 billion children live in extremely high-risk areas. But I also want you to know, like, the rest half of the world's children live in high-risk areas. They don't live in extremely high-risk areas, but they live in high-risk areas. So the challenge is now, and then we need to move forward. Coming to the, why they're most valuable, I make the case for investment in early childhood, and in regards, in translation for the need of better data. I make the case with the four, based on four scenarios. One is rights, equity, science, and finance. In terms of rights, we make it's premised on a child's right, and is expressed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the UN Convention on the Rights of Child, where early childhood development for children on the move is a composite expression of this right. I'm going to rush through again because I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. But going to science-based, there's we're going to need proper nutrition and stimulation, especially in the first 5 years of life, because they play a very critical role in the process of brain formation and development. And then at the end, I will go to the finance-based needs, where it's working or investing on early childhood is a very cost-effective equalizer across all spectrums. The longer a society waits to intervene in the life cycle of a disadvantaged child, the more costly it is to remediate the disadvantage. To put simply, every dollar invested in quality ECD programs will yield greater results for vulnerable children with the same amount invested later on. This is a high return of investment, about 17% to every dollar invested in early childhood. Now, such investments require child and family-centered policies, and there was a framework that was developed by the WHO, UNICEF, through a lot of collaboration. Next slide. Which was the Nurturing Care Framework. Now, these are 5 components of the Nurturing Care Framework, which is good health, adequate nutrition, responsive caregiving, safety and security, and opportunities for early learning. Now, the basic essence of the framework is by ensuring that these 5 components can be held up in a child regardless of the circumstance. We ensure that the child grows up to be resilient and a contributing member of the society. There was a question which came up yesterday where, how do we ensure age-specific indicators into, while developing indicators for IDAC itself? I think this would be a good way, especially in the perspective of early childhood, where the Nurturing Care Framework comes with, I think, 24 core indicators, and most of them are SDG-based indicators, which are collected through the mixed survey by UNICEF. So what it does is, in addition to collecting data which are core, like child's health, anthropometry, and so on. It also has ECD-specific, early childhood-specific data, where they ask questions for mothers or primary caregivers on the conditions of care within a child's environment, including availability of learning materials, early stimulation, responsive caregiving by caregivers, inadequate supervision, and so on. And I really want to focus on the second part of the question, because I realize we're also young stakeholders, and we're here to give that opinion. Next slide, please. So, there was this question, which was raised yesterday consistently, on how do we engage and find voices of children and young people to bring life to this data that we have. And then we have to do this consistently. And how do we do that? And it's not only in regards to early childhood, but data in general, especially for children of all age groups on the move. Now, me and a couple of colleagues really sat down and thought about it. And I wanted to share with you a pilot that we did in the Asia Pacific region on the impacts of climate change on young children. This was done on part of a broader project, but several of these pictures that we collected hold meanings in this context of children on the move. And I wanted to share it with you. We did this activity using photo voice with young stakeholders. They would be including, young parents, young professionals like doctors, lawyers, early education, early educators, early childhood educators, and even climate negotiators, youth diplomats for, countries at COP at the UNFCCC. And then we asked them how you would see climate change affecting young children. And these were the responses that we received. I'm going to show them to you as was received. The first photo was shared by a colleague of mine, a young climate negotiator for the UNFCCC from Indonesia. Here she shares a picture of a group of boys along with her brother standing in front of her submerged house. The house has been submerged for a number of years, and it's become a yearly event, leading to her and her family being displaced within their own communities. She wanted this photo to be a reminder and a call to action that climate change is happening now, and solutions for it need to be found and enacted at this present moment. We cannot wait. It is a living reality for many. Next photo. The next photo was shared by a young mother and a doctor from India, the one that you see on the left. She submitted the photo because it presents an issue so commonly seen that it has lost sensitivity in India. It shows a migrant child hospitalized due to malnourishment. Her family are daily wage workers from the north, having moved to the south of India looking for better opportunities. Her major concern is not just undernutrition, but she also wants to showcase epigenetic changes in the child. These are changes that can be inherited, meaning that the effects of climate change can alter gene expression. This means that not just this child, but her children and her grandchildren will suffer from the effects of climate change, even if we collectively decide tomorrow that we're going to wake up and not pollute the planet and find a better way forward. Lastly, the photo on the right was shared by a young researcher from Indonesia. This is in his community after severe flooding. It shows his younger brother, as he found him as he comes home from work, playing in a very high-risk environment with no adult supervision, left to his own devices. He reflects that climate-related disasters affect children's right to play, education, safety, and security. They lose their homes and schools. And by taking this photo, he wanted to portray the need for mainstreaming interventions to young children and parents, especially during emergency response. Each of these photos tell a story. They tell a story through the eyes of young people who might be youth today, but were children just yesterday. Addressing each of these photos, no matter how small, leads to a more resilient home, a more resilient child, a more resilient community, and a more resilient country. And in the words of our youth champion yesterday, we need to create stories to bring numbers to life and ensure children and youth are not only counted, but their voices are heard, their needs are met, and dignity is preserved. And I hope we can realize that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hari, for your insightful intervention. Thank you for reminding us that children on the move is not a homogeneous group, and there are particularly vulnerable groups. And thank you for sharing the innovative ways of collecting the data about them. Now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Elijah Akoy-Makwei, joining us online. Elijah is a young refugee community leader who will talk about effective mechanisms to empower young children and youth on the move to participate in data-related processes and the effective role that different stakeholders play in promoting data and literacy among the community. Elijah, I hope you can hear us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Um, my internet is not so good, but I'm not sure if you will be able to hear me, but I will try. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for the wonderful introduction that you have just made. I will just go to the question that I've been asked. For many years that I've been in the refugee camp, I've been working toward the empowering of young refugee camp. But based on the data policy, one of the things that I have realized that immigration data for the displaced immigrant and young refugee lack transparency and inclusivity because the external agencies and the government sometimes they do not involve the refugee youth on how they can on the policy design and the implementation and the purpose of the data being collected. And one of the things is that most of these refugees, they have high expectation when the data is being collected. They hope that something positive will come out of what of the data that the survey that has been done. And for these youth to be enlightened, they must be included so that they should be informed on the purpose of the data and how the data will be used and protected. Because you find that these are the people who are very knowledgeable. They have a lot of experience in the refugee camp that they base, and for them, they can be able to the insight can be able to help policymakers to inform right program on and how they can be able to protect and have consent on the data that is being used. So for a good number of years that I've been working on with youth, and that's what gave me an idea to co-found a community-based organization that will support refugees. It will give them a skill on how they can be able to tackle some of the things that that will help them to deal with other things that may arise in the future, and also to amplify their voices in terms of data-related driven, because as a young refugee who are just who has come to the refugee camp without parents. Some of them they are unaccompanied minors. Some of them they are single-headed families. So they need a lot of to know how this data is being collected and how the data should be used. So that is one thing that for us to build trust and protection, we need to consider transparency and participatory approach in collection of data for these young people, because for them to, it's like when a program is being designed where you don't know and that program is brought you, you will have high expectation and you will have a lot of questions that you need to ask for you to get better understanding of this. Some of the things for us to enhance to enlighten youth on the data related matters, one thing is to have accessible education and training for data literacy. So the agents, the stakeholders, and the government should put some measures in place so that the refugee youth, the migrants, should be trained on how they can be able to on the data literacy, so that they know that the data being collected, the safety of that data, the privacy are well protected, regardless of one. Also to create a safe and inclusive space for engagement, coming up with focus group discussion, and also whenever we need to have our data, for example, any organization need our data for the refugee or migrant, they should set a focus discussion where these they are assembled together, and the view can also be factored in their design and also in the protection of data. Then also consent and privacy awareness. So it's good that if we can be in a position to explain how their data will be used, it's stored and protected. That one is also a key thing. Because sometimes when my data is collected and I don't know how this data will be stored, how it will be protected, it will leave me in a lot of suspicion. So I will be asking a lot of questions. So in short, in the migrant and the refugee youth who are in the refugee camp are the one who are knowledgeable in this one. So it will be good to involve them in the design, implementation, and how the data will be protected so that they will not have suspicion in regarding to matter to do with their data. So that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Elijah, for sharing your work on making young migrants active stakeholders in the data collection process, active and informed stakeholders. And now we're ready to move on to our last intervention. I would like to give the mic to Ms. Salsabila Rashid to talk about the digital transformation of migration and displacement data from a gender lens. Salsabila, can you please share your experience of working with female migrants and displaced children and youth when it comes to digital transformation, and how do you think different stakeholders, especially governments, can promote social and economic empowerment of young girls and women on the move? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dennis. First of all, I would like to say it's truly an honor for me to be in this space with you all and to talk about the topic that combines two very powerful forces. First is migration, and the next is digital transformation. Talking about migration, migration is not just about movement across borders, but it's also about stories, struggles, and resilience. And when it comes to women and young girls on the move, those stories are often highlighted as just the disproportionate challenges that they face. So let's explore together today how actually digital transformation can change those stories, and more importantly, how we can ensure that it does so equitably. Next slide. Talking about the global landscape. First, let me start by painting a picture of where we stand today. As you see that globally, women account for almost a half, that is 48% of the migrants' population. And that's roughly 130 million women on the move. But here's the catch. Many of these women are being left behind in the digital era. So, women globally are 23% less likely than men to use the mobile internet. And in low middle income countries, for instance in Pakistan, India, and even in some countries in Africa, we see that the women are more, the percentage of women is more or less. So 165 million fewer women own mobile phones as compared to men. And that digital divide is even starker for the displaced women and the girls on the move. We see that 1 in 4 have the basic digital skills. So when talk about empowering migrants women, it is very important that we have to recognize that technology isn't just a convenience for them, it is a lifeline. It is a lifeline for them. So it's their bridge to information, not only just information, but also to the services and the opportunities itself. But as it stands, that bridge isn't accessible to everyone. Next slide. And next slide. Yeah. Talking about the impacts on the young women and as well as the girls in the move, let's just think about what happened when that bridge is actually missing. For instance, for the women on the move, the consequences are actually real and so harsh. Without access to the digital platforms, they're often cut off from the vital resources. For instance, the job opportunities, healthcare information, and in some countries, for instance, if I talk about Pakistan, it's even the legal support. Like most of the women don't even know about their rights, and that's why they don't even know what is the appropriate channel to claim their legal rights. This lack of access creates economic barriers, and it's difficult to find a stable work to even start a business without a digital tools, which means many women often remains dependent on some exploitative opportunities. And then there's also exists an issue of safety, like without digital literacy or access, women are often vulnerable to scams, more frauds, and even in trafficking. And we see that's happening in Afghanistan as well. That is why the digital divide isn't just a gap in technology, but it's just a gap in security and as well as an opportunity. Yeah. But digital skills can also change lives for the young women on the move. Like imagine how a woman who's just fled her home without nothing but the clothes on her back. Now imagine that if she is given that opportunity and the tools and the training to actually assess the digital world, she can find the remote job, she can even start an online business and assess the health and the legal services all from her phone. This isn't just a hypothetical, and I'm not just saying it being just hypothetical, but the statistics tells us that the women with digital skills, for instance, according to the United Nations women, 60% women are more likely to participate in the workforce and even earning better wages in the Middle Eastern countries and also in the South Asia as compared to men. So programs like the United Nations Women e-commerce program for the women have already shown us that it is possible and it can happen. Women also involved in the digital marketplaces earn up to 30% more than those in the traditional sectors, and these are the stats from the workforce of the women working in the digital sector in Pakistan. Even in the most challenging settings, like if we talk about the refugee camps, the digital access makes a difference. For instance, 35% of the displaced women use mobile phones to access the health information, which improves their well-being and even save their lives. But also, let's just remember that we don't even lose the sight of the reality that there's also exists the reality that 40% of the women in the refugee camps have not access to formal digital training compared to the 60% of the men. This is where we need to step up, and there brings the discussion of having the policy recommendations. Next slide. Next slide. Policy recommendations. Yeah. So not taking a lot of time, and let us discuss about some policy recommendations and some solutions and the best practices in the countries for the women in the displaced girls on the move, and how actually, the digital education have been successful to them. So talking about technology and the policy recommendations, how do we actually bridge this gap? First of all, it starts with creating an environment where women can assess and use the technology confidentiality and also safely. For instance, making technology accessible to them, like we need to get the basic rights, subsidized phone, and the affordable internet should be given to the women on the move. Similarly, reliable infrastructure in the remote areas should be accessible to them. Talking about the best practice here, we see it in Kenya. The digital literacy program, also known as a Digi School, distributed the tablets in the refugee camps to the young women. And it actually gave these people tools to access the education and other resources. Similarly, also, it's not just about providing the technology accessible to them, but also to protect their data. So like we can't ignore the trust factors that women are understandably hesitant to use the digital platforms, and if they fear their data will be misused. So policies like Brazil's data protection law shows us how to prioritize the privacy and security when it comes to taking consent from the women on the move. Similarly, last but not least, invest in the local solutions, because we need to meet the women where they are, literally and figuratively. Community-driven programs like Ethiopia's CRRF program framework integrates displaced women and girls on the move into the local economies and provide them the skill training programs and as well as the financial support tailored to their needs. At the end, I would just say that it isn't just about providing the technology, access, and just policy. It's just all about people. It's all about creating a world where every woman, regardless of their circumstances, has the tools and the opportunity to rebuild her life. Thank you so much for being with me in this conversation. And let's just continue working together to close these gaps and to build those bridges. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Salsabila, for your intervention. You gave us another perspective, how we can approach the empowerment of young people on the move, especially young women and girls. So this presentation concludes our panel discussion today. Our speakers demonstrated today how the Leave No One Behind principle can be supported by means of youth action. And we've also heard about some fascinating best practices and legal frameworks for children on the move. Once again, I would like to thank our dear participants, Christian, Asma, Hari, Alija, and Salsabila for the insightful and informative contributions. Now we have some time for a Q&A session. I suggest that we collect one round of questions, let's say 2 or 3 questions, and then our panelists will be happy to respond to them. Please do not forget about the panelists who are joining us online. So please raise your hand if you have a question.
It's more of a question, so to Asma, right? Yeah, so I mean, I think that you didn't mean to say that the data collected by states was unnecessary, but I do agree with your point that the data collected by civil society is extremely helpful to complement the one that's collected by the state, because civil society organizations usually reach communities that may be inaccessible to the state. I wanted to ask you about the role that local government, you mentioned local governments and how you see that they could be helpful, and I wanted to know how, what role you think they could play in cooperation with civil society to collect specific kinds of data. So I just wanted to, know more about that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. So I believe for the sake of time and to allow everyone to have proper lunch, let's start briefly answering them. So initially we had a question on data harmonization, on ensuring data collection is in line with different sources, with other sources, and we had a comment on data sources related to the civil society organization and how this feeds into the general data structures. So please.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea, for making it. I'm not sure if I made a mistake while speaking, but I did not say that we don't need official data. Please, I mean, that I would never say this. What I'm saying is that there is an opportunity in including civil society work on data by giving them chances, capacity building, making it inclusive, getting their work to be, in fact, complementary to the work done by governments and official data. And I think that it will bring a lot of light and it will help us bridge the gap that we are having already. So that's my point. And I totally agree with, the points that you did. Of course, civil society needs a lot of capacity building and empowerment, but they still have a lot of access to very remote places. They have the trust of their communities, the trust of migrant communities, of people on the move, and they play a great role of bridging, if we can use them, as we say, correctly, and we can integrate them in the work we are aiming to do. Now, when I mentioned, Andrea, the local governments, so I was having in mind, in fact, different parts in different contexts, specifically North Africa and Turkey, for instance. So in some of these societies, the tribal character of the South cities, for instance, in Tunisia and Libya, makes local governments in these specific in these specific countries and contexts have more understanding and more capacity, if I may say, to relate to the coming sub-Saharan African migrants in the North African context, or to the coming Syrian, Iraqi, Turkmen refugees. And then when we talk about the Turkish example, for instance, local governments in this instance, specifically if they are not under a lot of political pressure, they have more chances to in fact be used and to be more effective in collecting data, in getting the trust of the people, because generally they share an identity marker with the coming migrants, because they are in borders, and they sometimes it's the same ethnic groups, the same spoken and used language, which gives them more capacity to work with with people on the move in these specific contexts. I'm sure there are other examples from all over the globe, but yeah, that's very shortly. Thank you so much. And I loved your presentation yesterday on missing migrants. Cannot not say that. Thank you.
Do we have other comments, including our panelists online? Christian, are you still with us? There was a question for you regarding... Yeah, sure. There was a question regarding ensuring that data collection that you perform is in line with other sources.
Exactly. So to respond to that question, I want to stress a little bit the challenge that is usually seen in the data collection, especially in this kind of context, is over collection of data. Like, I'll tell you a story. 2 years ago, I was a mentor for young youth and adolescents aged 14 to 19 years. And the donor for this project was interested really in children who are out of school from the age of 14 to 19 years. But what happened, and I think Elijah talked a little bit about this, in data collection processes in the refugee camp, usually people have so much high expectations about their data being collected. And when we don't actually tell them why is this data collected and the reason, and include them in the processes, there is this disconnect between the data that we actually collect and the data that is needed. So in this exercise, when I was kind of training these young people on the introduction on storytelling, so I would have young people who were aged 20, 24, and when they come to me, they claim to be 19 or they claim to be 17 so that they can be let into the program. But again, there is another scholarship program that is taking young refugees from the camp to study abroad. And the criteria for that is 18 years and above. So when they go to this program, they actually tell their actual age, like I'm 24. But when they come to me, they say, I am 19, and I cannot dispute their data. They are giving their data themselves. They have documents to prove that. So I think what Alfred, I don't remember if it was Alfred the name, what he stressed about people kind of working together in the processes of collecting data, I'm not sure how we can ensure there is no disparity between the data that is collected on this side and the data that is collected on the other side. It really depends on the person of interest. Are they kind of included in the processes? Are they made sure and made clear about the reasons and the reasons why that their data is collected, how this is going to help them or how this is not going to help them? So I think it's a little bit complicated to say that there is a mechanism that I have used personally to ensure there is no disparities between the data that I kind of assist in collecting and data that are collected with, from other agencies. I'm not sure if that answers his question, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. I suggest here we conclude our session. I just would like to make a short resume here. So today we talked about how young people can support building trust in the data processes for the children on the move, including capacity building in data and privacy, and the power of media filmmaking and active co-creation for data privacy, and data protection, including the power of the data creation by the civil society organizations. And also we explored groups with particular needs and vulnerabilities when it comes to data for children on the move, such as young women and the youngest children. We thank you very much for your attention, and we wish you a fruitful rest of the conference.